So welcome everyone to this episode of the Business Model Lab, brought to you by Air Miners and Mesh Energy Consulting. Today, we've got the Applied Negative Emissions Center, Karen Russell and Deanna Hahn from that group to come talk to us about their consultancy, which helps their clients to utilize negative emissions technologies to achieve their goals. We got a couple fresh faces on the call today, so I'm going to have them introduce themselves. Let's start with Annie. Just Annie, if you want to just tell us kind of a quick blurb about you and anything you do involved with air miners and CDR, that'd be great.
Yeah. Hey, my name is Annie. I have a background in computer science, and I've spent some time working in engineering and fintech. I just recently joined Air Miners. It's been awesome to hop in on environmental justice planning and just getting to know the community, talking with folks who are already working on stuff. So I'm excited to learn about as much as I possibly can when it comes to CDR and climate tech.
Great. Thanks, Annie. And then Meghana, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So I'm Meghana, and I think similar to Annie, I also studied computer science and recently joined Air Miners and have loved meeting everybody and learning everyone's background. And it's been such a wonderful group to learn with. And yeah, also want to just learn more about how CDR technologies are being currently applied. So I'm very excited for today.
Thanks, Meghana. Glad to have you both, two fresh faces on the call. It's great to see. And then we also have Fabian Nilsson. Fabian, hello, welcome back. We'll just skip over you, no offense, but you've already introduced yourself on these calls. And Jason Grillo is joining us as well, Air Miners' own, who happens to also be an advisor to the Applied Negative Emissions Center. So he's got some experience with the group. But without further ado, I want to introduce Karen Russell and Deanna Hahn, who are going to tell us a little bit about their journey to beginning the Applied Negative Emissions Center and what the consultancy does for its clients. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you guys, and please tell us about yourselves.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. So I am Karen, and the founder of the Applied Negative Emissions Center is Diana. So the Applied Negative Emissions Center is a consultancy and a negative emission technologies hub. So we connect different technology innovators with different governments, organizations, and institutions that want to achieve net zero targets. And we help them throughout the journey. Diana, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, so we see ourselves as there's a gap between the innovators and then our clients. So on both sides, there's a lot of steps missing, puzzles missing in between. So we see ourselves as an innovation bridge, so that can bring both parties together and jointly create a creative solution to better to reach our clients' net zero goal.
Yeah. So. You're on mute, I think.
Oh my God.
No, I was not. Not Diana.
I was on mute. You're doing great, Diana. I was wondering if we could just back up and maybe you could both tell us a little bit about your journey into negative emissions technologies. What's your academic background and how did you end up conceptualizing this business itself?
Yes, so my background is I have a bachelor's in chemistry, specialized in atmospheric chemistry, and then I did a master's in carbon management. So I have experience in research as a research assistant and a research fellow for different universities around the world, always focused on climate change type of research. And so also I have experience with not-for-profit organizations by being the leader of the Mexican chapter of 350.org or Citizens Climate Lobby. So I'm also a participant of the Climate Reality Project, and I used to work really closely with the Latin American branch. So those are like some of the experiences that I had before starting this venture. I think that one of the things that brought me there had to do a lot of similar to what Diana explained on how we envision ourselves as the connecting point between different actors. I think that for me, one thing that was obvious as a part of the academia and as part of the not-for-profit and always talking to different governments was that there is like actually no connection among these different ideas and spaces. So there can be people that are doing amazing stuff to actually save the world, but the governments or the businesses are actually not really aware of all these innovations. So even if they actually wanted to introduce some of these ideas into their own spaces, sometimes it is really difficult for them to understand what is out there. And sometimes even if they see something, they don't really fully understand how it can be applied to their own cases. So that is something that I thought that was really interesting for me as a reason to co-found this with Diana. And I think that it has a lot to do as well with the importance that carbon removal has had in my life. So for me, I've been interested on this field since I think I was like 11 or 12 years old, when there were like just like the initial ideas of director capture, but it was like really, really far behind. So for me, this has been something that has been a passion of mine since a long time ago. So I think that it was just like an organic path for me to just transition into all of these different sectors and just actually follow my passion and how the carbon removal can be integrated into all of these sectors. So that is part of my journey. And I think that Diana has an interesting story as well.
Same with me. I think my passion for finding solutions for climate change also starts at a young age. So I'm Canadian. So growing up in Canada, we always have David Suzuki, which is kind of the Canadian version of David Attenborough. So I grew up with his documentary about biodiversity, things like that. So that's why I chose carbon management as my master's. I also did chemistry for my bachelor's degree. What's interesting about our master's in carbon management, it actually provides a very full picture for climate change. So it's looking at carbon policies, looking at different business model, green business models, and looking at the more science perspective, more policy perspective. I think from that, we see that there is a need to integrate negative emission technology or GDR technology with the existing solutions to create a kind of holistic package, whether it's for cities or for companies or for bigger countries. And we see that the existing measures, they're very reactive. So it's usually, when we're preventing flood, when we're preventing disasters, but then I see GDR as more proactive. So that's why we joined forces and started this company. And as I've mentioned before, I started my PhD in the Netherlands in September. My PhD is in circular business model, and I see there's a huge overlap between my academic work and also with my consultancy. And just today, for my PhD, I actually did a case study for Carbon Cure, because for Carbon Cure, they use a subscription business model. And and also what's more circular than, recycling carbon. So it's great that for both of my work, I'm doing something so closely linked to each other and something I'm passionate about.
PhD and a consultancy sound like a lot to juggle. You must be a busy person, Deanna. Jason, I know you said you had to jump. I wonder if you have just a minute, because I think it's worth just having you kind of explain your role and what you do with ANEC, since you're bridging our guests and air miners.
Sure. I have to jump for 5, but I'll be back shortly after that. So working with Karen and Deanna to advise them on how to build their business, how to acquire clients, how to service clients better, and what their brand will mean in the future. My focus is in marketing based on my experiences as a professional. So happy to be helping out and hope that the advice that I provide is useful and is leading to them achieving their goals.
Excellent. Yeah, I having worked in consulting for over a decade, I know the marketing side often eludes the consultants, at least from my experience. So it's a good role, and something that we often need help with. So I want to talk a little bit, and any Megana and Fabian, feel free to jump in, but I do want to talk a little bit about the types of clients that you guys are working with. I know that, at least from the website, you guys are working with private sector as well as public sector clients. Are you actively engaging with customers on both sides?
Yeah, so our type of clients have been universities. For example, in our early stages, we have worked with, for example, the University of Warwick, or we are our more current, our current project. Well, it just ended the first phase a few weeks ago, was with the UK government. So we were working with the creation of strategies for some cities such as Manchester in Northern England. So we were creating the strategy for the integration of different negative emission technologies and how it can be best implemented as a system rather than just integrating just one technology here, one technology there, but actually how can they collaborate together to be more efficient and to have the biggest amount of co-benefits within each other. Because sometimes, as Diana mentioned, the circularity model can be actually applied quite well into some of these technologies. And from simply the byproduct that some of these technologies can integrate into a supply chain of other technologies, I think that is some of the aspects that we were trying to elaborate further when we were creating this type of project. So yeah, we do engage with this type of different types of clients. So we've also done consultancy work for a company in Canada. So yeah, we try to engage as much as we can with all the actors. As for us, it is important that we cannot just like focus on one single side of the coin, as all of them have some contribution that is really important for us to actually achieve the Paris goals by 2100, or even to achieve the net zero targets that some countries have by 2030 or by 2050. So for us, it is the integration of multiple pieces, and we see that as the wide variety that we have in our clients, integrating all of their work together as well. I don't know if Diana has something to add to that.
I just want to elaborate on the kind of the Manchester project that Karen just mentioned. So instead of just focusing on either the private sector or public sector, we actually do see there's a huge importance of public and private sector collaboration and partnership. So again, going back to the Manchester example, so we see that even though in terms of public sector, they have more regulatory control, but then in terms of resources and assets, that's within the private sector. So a lot of values cannot be unlocked, and a lot of things cannot be achieved without the partnership between the two. So for example, for Manchester, a lot of our strategy relies on constant stakeholder engagement and engaging with business networks and, for example, like concrete companies, different industries. So we see as more a very collaborative work for co-creation rather than one or the other.
Makes sense. And when a client comes to you, or you begin an engagement with a client on, I guess, public or private, what do they come to you saying? We've heard about, like, let me rephrase this. What's the level of knowledge on NETs that your customers come to you with? Are they sort of have an inkling that this thing is out there and there are technologies that pull carbon out of the air, and they're wondering what can we do with this? or do they have something very specific that they want to implement and they need someone to help them get there? Or does it run the gamut? And maybe if you could give us an example or two.
So the clients who come to us, they usually already have a net zero or carbon management plan in place. So they're working on the deadline. So, and, recently, I guess they keep hearing about, negative emission technologies and all these buzzwords. So that's why they're interested, because they see that whatever they're doing now or their existing measures or projects is nowhere near reaching, their goal. That's, the deadline in 10 or 20 years. That's why they come to us. But in terms of their, we call it carbon literacy or knowledge, I think there's a lot of confusion between the term. For example, whether they should use carbon removal technology, or they use carbon removal solutions, or do they use negative emission solutions? And then there's a huge confusion between on-site removal and also offsetting. So a lot of companies, they come to us, they think that that we do offset, and it's easy for them just to pay a fee and sort of their problem goes away. But then I think we cater more towards something that can be done on site, and that can be very well integrated using their own assets and resources. And then if they're, for example, if they're a private company that's manufacturing, so we try to find solution that can be more fitted to their manufacturing process. So it's more on-site catered solution rather than just offsetting. So that's one, I guess, big hurdle we came across when we initially engaged with our clients.
And what sort of CDR or negative emission technologies are you applying on site?
So it has to do it depends on the type of client. So depending on the type of client is the type of resources that they have available. So the different types of negative emission technologies that can happen, like from biochar to, mineralization, or something that can be even more like quite specific. For example, just carbon capture benches, like things that are like really, really specific. We try to keep an eye open, or keep an eye on the wider range, the wide range that technologies can, we try to keep an eye on the wide range of technologies that are out there. So actually we just try to make sure that we find the most fitting solution for each one of our clients, because each one of them will have specific resources that may not be replicable across all of the different businesses. So that is something that we actually do care a lot about. And so we could mention like just the traditional types of negative emission technologies, but we also try to give a voice to all these innovators that may not fit within just like a traditional category of direct air capture or biochar. Like we do use those, but we also try to serve as a platform for all the rest of the innovators that are trying to think outside of the box, and that these technologies can actually change the world as well. So we just use like a really big range of technologies.
So Karen, you mentioned the word platform, which I want to dig into for a moment, because it does seem like you guys are sort of a for service two-sided platform in a way. On one hand being your clients and them asking, how do we integrate these negative emissions technologies to meet our carbon reduction goals? On the other hand, you have the technology providers, because you guys are not the technology providers, you are the connectors. And so, I mean, is that generally accurate?
Yeah, that is quite accurate.
And
oh, sorry.
Yeah, I guess so. The second part of the question being, how much time are you spending on the other side, not with clients, but out there developing partnerships with technology providers, or pushing technology providers to create something that works for your specific client? Can you talk a little bit about how that side of the business works?
Yeah, so actually we do spend a lot of time engaging with different innovators. Like I think that is, yeah, like we spend the time like 50-50, half of them with the end users and half of them with the innovators, because we do think that one of the main differentiators of our company is the fact that we are open to the approach and adoption of all these technologies that can be quite new to different consultancies, for example. So we do try to engage with as many innovators as we can that, of course, fitting within the certain criteria according to our own growth, for example, because some kind of conversations that Diana and I have had about how we envision the Applied Negative Emission Center in the future is as a hub that can also support innovators that are like starting from technology readiness levels that are like lower than the applicability that we are using right now. So right now, for us to have a partnership with an innovator, we need to know exactly their metrics. So for example, we need to know about their life cycle analysis, the numbers of how carbon negative can they be, like all the resources that are required for the implementation of this technology, so that we can actually take it out there and be like, okay, this actually fits this client perfectly, so let's match them together. But in the future, what we would like to do is also have this idea of having all these businesses that can contribute to the R&D of other technologies that are just in process of innovating and changing the world. So that is something that we want to do like further down the road. But in the current state, we try to partner up with innovators that are already like that have gone through several phases, so that their technology can just be implemented.
So the
I don't know if
technology
that makes sense.
level has to be there for the implementation. And I know in this business, oftentimes non-disclosures and discretion are the way. But are there any names you can name on the technology provider end? I know you mentioned Carbon Cure as one.
Well, yeah, I think that some of these, we have to be quite discreet with the types of innovators that we engage with. So yeah, I think that we would rather like keep it low profile, if that's okay.
Yep. Nope. That's I was semi-expecting that answer, but figured I'd ask anyway. And let me ask another question, since this is the business model lab, and I think you guys are very well aware of this, that there's, and I think this is a problem that you all are helping to solve, which is you have technologies that need to be deployed. You have customers who are ready to deploy the technologies within their own businesses and organizations. You're bridging that gap. What is your business model? Like, are you guys simply a fee for service consultancy, or is there more to the way that ANEC is generating income? We'd be interested to hear a little bit about that.
But Diana?
Oh yeah. Currently, we are just more to cater towards the client side, but then I think our vision or a few years down the road is to actually cater to both sides. So I think from technology side, we will turn our technology partners into our clients as well. And then I think, as you've mentioned, the gap, we're saying there are lots of missing pieces. So for example, there's the carbon accounting consultancy firms, or verification, monitoring, and other supporting services. So I think, so we envision ourselves that we are able to connect everyone that's on this carbon supply chain. So what we offer in the future to our clients is a complete package with all these key partners or key players.
And are you guys doing your own? Let me ask you this: How big is the organization right now? How many folks are working with you all under?
So we have, we have 2 people that are part-time and 5 that are just like as part of the team.
Okay, yeah. That's
So we're like a small team, but we work
that's a good-
together really well. So
And are you guys doing greenhouse gas accounting and life cycle analyses in-house, or is that something that you guys sort of do
no,
clients ask
at
you to do
this,
that, or is that
yeah,
come to you
so
after
that
that?
I
Sorry.
think that is, no, sorry. I think that is part of the partnerships that Diana was trying to come through with. So yeah, we try to connect as our main focus is actually like trying to have all these innovators and everyone in line so that their technologies can just be deployed. We try to focus our business on that. So we know that we could we do have the knowledge to actually do those services, but for us, it would be diversifying in the wrong direction. So the way that we actually work with these companies, if they are like, oh, we actually need this extra service, we connect them with some other partners, like other consultancies that can actually do that service for them. So in that way, we're connecting everyone in the loop and just keeping it really simple for the end client. And I think that in that way, it is more a collaborative type of space. So everyone has their own role in the whole panorama of the net zero journeys that businesses or governments would require. So we end up collaborating more with other consultancies rather than having them as competitors, because everyone has their own niche and their own expertise. And we think that that is really, really valuable. And so that is the way that we've been dealing with that so far. Yeah.
And are you guys playing sort of a single point or project management role in that?
Yeah, yes, we are. Yeah. And just as Karen has mentioned, because currently our clients are people who have done carbon accounting already, who know what's their like annual emission, what's their net zero goal. But then in the future, we want clients who haven't actually done that initial assessment. That's why we want to connect with carbon accounting companies to actually go to these clients who are relatively clueless, actually then offer them a full package. And then just go from initial assessment to all the way to delivery. So basically cover all the steps and then create a very, a great enabling environment. So it's sort of make negative emission technology more digestible for them.
That makes sense. Let's talk about business development, because I'm curious how you all are finding your clients during this socially distanced era. So what's been your strategy to find these clients who are at this sort of very specific moment in time where maybe they've done a life cycle analysis or a greenhouse gas inventory and are saying, we like negative emission technologies. How do we incorporate them into our carbon management strategy? Where do you find these clients right now?
I think they are everywhere. No, like seriously, it is actually not that difficult, because finding clients with these characteristics, like they are quite all over the world. And I think that is one of the strengths that we have as a team. As all of us are like quite multicultural, we can actually engage quite easily with different regions in the world. So for us, it is not even like trying to focus on just one country, because I don't know, for example, me, I'm Mexican, or Diana is Canadian. We have another member that is from Lebanon and Russia. So we just have like people that are just like really interested on this type of service and this thing that we know that can have a huge impact in the world. And in that way, we just connect with our regional type of markets, because that is what we know best. So that is what makes it quite easy for us to just move from one client to another. And you just know about them, like the businesses just come out and say like, oh yeah, we want this. And we're like, oh, we're here. So it is actually not that difficult. It is just like they are there and we just introduce ourselves and they are like, oh, we actually are interested on your service.
In terms of the early stage of building our network, so one type of clients we communicate with are universities, and as we're both from University of Edinburgh, and actually the one of the founders of the UK Biochar Center is our lecturer and also our advisor. So that's, in terms of university, that's where we first start building our network. And then, for example, UK universities or universities in general, I think most universities already have a sustainability plan, or they have declared climate emergency. You know, if in terms of keyword search, that's what we look for when we search on Google. And then there's so many of them, and then we, how do I put this? Oh, you see the desperation in their, on their website, in their messages. So that's how, in terms of universities, that's how we start to approach them. And then the same goes for cities. So again, use UK as example. Different region, different cities, they all have their different deadlines and different pathway and different journey they're looking forward to reach their net zero goal. So it's actually quite easy to find these clients.
And so if I'm hearing you correctly, you're actually using just Google in many cases to figure out, okay, who are the clients, potential clients in the space, what are their goals, and from there you're able to parse out who might be at that particular moment in time that your services would come in as useful to them.
Yeah, it is actually quite simple. I think that is what most consultancies would do in this case.
Usually our potential client, they usually, most of them publish their their net zero goal, they publish their sustainability reports, and then they also publish their the ongoing projects. So I think from that we can get a snapshot of where they are right now and their position on their net zero journey. So it's quite easy for us to pitch to them, how we can help with them accelerating that journey to net zero.
And let's dig into that just a little bit further, because I'm very interested. So when you, I guess, are trying to get to the point of pitching, let's say you found a city and they seem to be a good fit, you think they could utilize your services. At that point, do you go to LinkedIn and try to find a common connection or someone who might be able to give you an introduction? Or do you simply just try to find an email for a manager or someone in their sustainability department and just do a cold outreach?
I think that the way that we do things is quite vague, in the sense that we just try to approach the client from different types of channels. So we try to just approach them in any, we know that different clients have different specific channels that will be more effective with them. So we try to use multiple channels, not just LinkedIn or emailing. We just try to diversify into different types of channels.
Yeah, for example, for the public sector, it's easier to reach them through emails. So for cities, we look for the sustainability manager in that sense, or director of sustainability. And for the private sector, I think they're more active on LinkedIn. So that's where we reach them. So again, our strategy differs depending on our clients.
That's great. And I think there's a lesson in this, in that sometimes the simplest and most maybe obvious and intuitive business development strategies are the ones that make the most sense. But I'll ask you a couple more questions on that front, then we can move on to a different topic. You have a great website. I love the imagery and the copy is written very well. Has that contributed to any business development for you guys? As in, are you getting any inbound requests based on people finding you through their own web searches saying, I need help with NETs. I guess, how is that happening? And could you tell us a little bit about maybe any keywords or
yeah, so actually we do have a specific member of the team that, through the advice of Jason, has created this amazing website. And they do, yeah, we do actually have like quite a good response through the website. So we can see, well, you know that like you have the statistics there, and they can tell you exactly which region in the world is more active towards this type of topics. So those kind of things, and just keeping track of every single thing that we can track from there, has been really useful for us to actually improve our content, improve the ways that we reach out to people. And yeah, from the website, we have got like several requests for meetings and just getting to know us and things like that.
That's great. And if you're watching this as a recording, we'll have the URL for the Negative Emissions Center in the meeting notes down below. So if you want to check out their website, Negative Emissions Center, spelled CENTRE.co.uk. That's all going to be typed out down below. So you should be able to just copy and paste that into your browser. I want to see if Annie or Meghana or Fabian have any questions. I've been doing all the talking, so just want to make sure you guys don't have anything specific you all want to ask.
Yeah, just one thing that came to mind. It sounds like you guys have a lot of, well, first of all, awesome stuff. I'm sure you guys are getting lots of clients, especially with the incredible experience you guys have. But one question I want to ask, because it sounds like you've been working with a lot of like commercial clients and maybe more public clients as well. But what have you found that like the innovators or kind of on the new technology side, if at all, have you been able to help them, or what have you found are some of the biggest stumbling blocks in trying to get that technology to market?
Yeah, so I think that one of the main things that our partners have encountered as one of the main blocks is, I think that one of the things that Diana mentioned about how some clients do not have maybe the required level of carbon literacy for them to understand some, even the value of what some of these technologies can do for them. So I think that that is something that has been really good for us to be able to help our clients with. So one of the phrases that Diana tends to use to describe us is as being the translator or the interpreter from one world to another. So that is something that we definitely see ourselves as. And that is a way that we know that we can provide value to our partners, because sometimes, well, even Diana and I, like from the academic world, translating it actually to the business world or to the governmental world, sometimes it is not the easiest thing. Even if it can be quite simple, it is not the easiest thing if you come from a really technical background. So trying to communicate the value of your idea and trying to tell the person that you're talking to that your idea can actually fit perfectly, sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do for our partners. So for us, being there as intermediaries can actually help them a lot to put out there the real value of what they do, and for the other person to actually appreciate that value. So I think that is one of the things that we've been encountering as one of the main challenges and one of the ways that we are able to help our partners.
Awesome.
That's really helpful. I can just second that from my own experience in consulting. I think that one of the key roles you play is speaking the language of one industry, speaking the language of the other, and helping those two to connect and trying to come up with words and phrases either that both teams will understand, or at least providing a basic level of education on each side, so that the manufacturing client can understand biochar or whatever that might be. And you're going to have to use all sorts of terminology around greenhouse gases, CO2 equivalents and things like this. And very quickly you'll be speaking Greek to your client, who, since you guys are international, for a non-Greek based customer. And and so there's an art to that. And I think that's a key to successful consulting, is being able to bridge those language and sort of keyword understandings. I've got a question about what are some things that, I guess, maybe going step further on Annie's question, are there any sort of common misconceptions that you hear regularly from your clients about this world, about CDR and technologies?
Yeah, I think that one of the things is what Diana mentioned as well, about how they think that the only thing that we can do for them is offsetting. So when we actually even mention like, no, we actually can't do on-site projects for them, it's like, really? Is that even possible? So I think that that is something that we keep hearing over and over again, like, oh, tell us more about your offsetting plans. And it's like, I mean, we could, but we actually prefer using on-site, like focusing on on-site solutions. So I think that that is something that we just keep hearing over and over again. Yeah, I don't know if you have like a different perception.
And I guess when it comes to nature solution, whether it's like hybrid solution or technology solutions, I think their confusion comes with when these can be implemented, and then in terms of the technology readiness, and these varies a lot. Even with the same technology, it varies between different countries, depends on the providers. So I think in terms of perspective, they lack that knowledge on the specificity when it relates to the specific partner we choose. And also when they think of the impact, for example, nature or hybrid solutions, we might need time to establish it, and we might need to establish a network of different players. We need to establish an ecosystem. So I think sometimes I know they're quite eager and then enthusiastic about using negative emission technology. But at the same time, we kind of have to make them know that realistically, sometimes things cannot happen now, or in terms of the impact, it might come like more like gradually. It's not something, they can just invest now and then, right away in 1 year, they can just reach their goal. So again, they need to have realistic expectations, so that also in terms of all these terminology and jargons out there, the confusion between all these between these terminologies. So I think these two are the biggest hurdles we've came across.
Are people surprised that these technologies are available today and can be applied on site?
Definitely. I think that that is something that whenever we talk, even with other consultancies, they are like, really? Is that something that can happen now? I've never heard about that. That's amazing. So yeah, no, that is definitely like something that that we think that it's really interesting, and that gives us space, not only for our consultancy, but for other actors in the car removal space to actually come up and just try to be more visible to people from other spaces, so that everyone can have a better understanding of how fast things are progressing in this sector. And yeah, definitely that is something that we keep hearing, and we just find it amusing.
Yeah, and in terms of I guess for like everyday people, when they hear negative emission technology, there's always this association with like the poster child, so the specs, which can be highly controversial, depends on how you design it, or it's direct air capture. These all seems to be very alien, large scale things that requires hundreds of millions of dollars investment, and then it just seems so far removed from sort of their like everyday business activities. But then we have to communicate to them that these solutions actually are available in different scales. And then they are all out there just waiting to be utilized, to be implemented.
Yeah, and I think part of what's needed to bring about the implementation of CDR within this decade is that understanding, is sort of a culture shift of people to understand that these technologies not only exist, but they're in many ways ready to be implemented. Of course, there's a lot of work to do to improve the accounting methods and the efficiency of a lot of these different pathways. But at the same time, a lot of them are ready to go, and you guys are proof of that. You exist and run a business based on implementing these technologies on site. There's something that I wanted to ask about because the sort of, I don't know, until this point, let's put a line in the sand today. Until this point, to me, the sort of carbon consultancy role and mantra has been, reduce what you can vis-a-vis, efficiency, maybe implementation of renewables on site, and offset the rest. Go buy some forestry-based offsets or something. And you guys are introducing this sort of new element to that age-old strategy, right? And I feel like, yeah, I mean, how do those other elements sort of integrate with what you do? I mean, I know you've mentioned offsetting. Are you doing any of that work of process efficiency, or hey, have you guys changed your lights out to LED yet? Or do you guys not mess with that part of it? And then again, like on the same side with the offsetting, at some point they are going to have to offset the rest. What is your guys' role in that whole continuum from reduce what you can to offset the rest, where I think sort of the implementation of on-site CDR is maybe right in between those two elements, but maybe you could speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, I think that, well, as part of the net zero strategy as itself, I think that we are, right in between those two, right in between the offsetting and right in between the energy efficiency and behavioral change measures. So that is one of the reasons that we do ask our clients to know the results of their carbon management plan, so that they know exactly what they would be expecting from their energy efficiency and their behavioral change, so to know exactly like what their expectations are. And I think that we understand that there is like a role for every single part of the puzzle. Like we like, I think that we just try to make sure that we contribute in the right way and in the right direction, so that there is not an over reliance on the negative emission technologies, but at the same time allow their development, as we know that they are vital for actually achieving all the climate goals that the world has. Without negative emission technologies, it is pretty much impossible that it will happen. So yeah, I would say that we're like somewhere in between. And I think that Diana and I have had this conversation about the offsetting part before. And we do think that the offsettings will keep happening and that they are quite important. And for example, for some technologies right now, for their own development, the only way that people can contribute to these technologies is through offsetting schemes, even if it is like a proper offsetting that actually is going to sequester and will capture and sequester the carbon, like not just like an avoidance of emissions, like a proper offsetting scheme. We think that, well, one of the things that we value the most in the way that offset could happen, like around our like own strategy, is not only knowing that they are ethical offsets and that they are actually capturing and sequestering carbon and not avoiding, but also making sure that they have to do with the local region of where the project is taking place. So for example, if a business or a government is developing a strategy, to make sure that the schemes actually happen within their own region, so that you have this sense of understanding that it is happening like next to you, that you're having a direct impact, and also you can ensure a lot of other things regarding ethics, that some offsets can be a little bit not that ethical in some ways. I don't know if Diana has another point of view to add to this, but yeah, that is where we sort of situate ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, these businesses, they're also citizens, right? So when they invest in a carbon removal solution, I want them to actually feel the, let's say, effect of a better climate, a reduced emission in the region, in where their workplace, where they have their families. So And also another ties back to what we envision ourselves. Our role in the future is to create that ecosystem. So I think within that ecosystem, we want to bring together, partners and other consultancy, other companies who actually help with the behavior change part of things, help with the more adaptive measure, help with other more conventional mitigation strategies, and also people are more dedicated to offsetting. So I think again, goes back to creating that full package. So I don't think I think all these strategies can happen at the same time. And I see there can be integration between these strategies. Goes back to what Karen has mentioned. For ethical offsetting, as we see, maybe that can directly support, or invest local or innovation in negative emission technology. So there's synergy between all these projects, between these strategies. So there's no either or, but then again, it's a big, climate change is a hard battle, and then everyone has to join forces.
Yeah, some really interesting parallels maybe with sustainable food and the benefits of bringing food production locally, also applying to negative emissions technologies, things I hadn't really thought of. Megan, I wanted to ask if you had a question. I thought I maybe saw you raising your hand, but.
I guess it's kind of been touched on a little bit in all of these answers, but I was curious how you fit, sorry about that, how you fit circular business models into deciding what technologies you connect to what businesses, and because I know you're studying that and I'm curious like how that plays.
That's more related to my PhD work so I specifically look at a circular services-based model. So for example, that's when they offer subscription, when they offer rental. So again, ties back to when I chatted with Carbon Cure. So they offer their technology, the concrete curing technology, with a subscription business model. So there's no need for a capital investment for the concrete manufacturers. So that actually lowers the barriers of entry for these manufacturers. And then I think that help really accelerate the journey for large scale deployment. So there's synergy between both areas of my work. So yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that another way of looking at it is, well, when we try to integrate like different technologies, we also try to look at the byproducts of like these different technologies and what are they creating, and to see if they can be integrated into the supply chain rather than just going to waste, but actually be like a resource that can be kept within the industries of the area, things like that.
Super interesting. Thank you for the question, Megan. Do you have a follow-up? Okay. I think I saw in the chats. Annie, did you have one more question? We're reaching the end of our time, so if you guys have to go, that we totally get that. If you have time for one more question, let us know. But we want to.
I do have to go shortly, but I will ask anyway. I just wanted to know, like, what are some of the incentives for public organizations beyond, I guess, like reaching their climate goals and maybe reducing costs and expenditures? I'm curious if there's one or two other things that you see public institutions really looking for.
Yeah, so I think that the main thing that they are looking for, as Anna mentioned at the beginning, is that they want to achieve their deadline. So I think that that is like the main incentive and the public pressure that comes to reaching the deadline. But I think that one thing that some clients can be quite happy about is like the benefits that a lot of these technologies can have. So either, for example, biochar can have as a fertilizer, or improving the soil quality, like just these kind of benefits that independent technologies can have are some things that some of these clients can be quite attracted to and can be really wanting to work with this specific technology because of that specific benefit. But those depend, like, again, on the type of technology. But I think that that would be like an additional idea that you can think of other than the achieving the deadline or the reduced costs in the future.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. This was an awesome event. I learned so much.
I agree. It's been really illuminating. Wonderful speaking with you both, Karen and Deanna. Appreciate you guys coming on and spending your time with us. This will be available on YouTube. I'll let you guys know when it's up and posted. And thanks everyone for joining us today. Looking forward to the next one, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for
you.
having us.
Take care.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Fabian. Thanks,
Thank you.
Karen and
Bye.
Deanna.
Bye.
Bye.